Alright, let's begin by going over some of the parts of the guitar. This again is something you're going to be able to find in Google in a million different places, so we're not going to go into too much here. Alright, parts of the guitar. We have the neck of the guitar is this entire section. On top of the neck of the guitar, we have the fretboard. You can see how there's the lighter wood right here, and then we have the rosewood on top. It can be different types of wood, but this represents the fretboard right here. The frets themselves are these metal lines that go across the guitar. Those are your frets. This is the head or the headstock of the guitar. Your tuning machines. Obviously your strings. These are your pickups on an electric guitar. This is your bridge. Your bridge saddles are these individual sections where the strings pass through. This is the nut of the guitar. Let's start with our strings. When we say low string and high string, what we're referring to is the tonality. On a guitar, the lowest note, the deepest note, is E, your low E string. And also, your highest note is also E, a high E string, because the pitch is much higher. So your low E, your high E. So that's important so we know when we refer to a low string or a high string. So let's go through the different string names. Lowest is E, A, D, G, B, E. An easy way to remember how the guitar is tuned is you can think to yourself it is tuned in fourths. What does that mean? Well, E, count up 4. E, F, G, A. A, B, C, D. D, E, F, G. Now this is where it gets complicated. G, A, B. We just count up 3 to B. And then your last string, E, B, C, D, E. And remember, your highest string, E, is the same as your lowest string, also E. Now it doesn't matter for a minute now, but the guitar actually isn't tuned to fourths. When we learn more about intervals, we'll learn that it's actually tuned to 3.5 steps, but that's for a future lesson when we get into intervals. The easiest thing to remember is that the guitar is tuned to fourths. On the guitar, we use different types of charts to make it easy for a student or a learner, or guitarist just in general, to envision where they need to put their fingers, whether that be for a chord. We use chord charts, or a tablature shows us how to play a scale along the neck. A chord chart is very simple. It's basically looking at the neck of the guitar and taking a picture of a segment of it. So let's just say we want these 3 frets. A chord chart, it would look like this. Now in tablature, we take the guitar and imagine that we turn it on its side facing you. When we look at the tablature, the lowest is going to be your low string. The next string up, your A string, D string, G string, B string, and E string. And then where we want you to put your finger on different frets, we just give it a number. So we'll give you the number of the fret on the string. So if I want you to put a finger on the 5th fret of the E string, it would look like this. If I want you to put a finger on the 7th fret of the A string, it would look like this. So on and so forth. Let's talk about how to hold the guitar. Holding the instrument is individual for everybody. I really do believe that it's all about comfort, but there are a couple general principles that are good. A good guitar is going to be pretty well balanced, so you can rest on your leg, and the neck's not going to fall down or come up. It'll just kind of sit nice and comfortably. That allows us to take our right arm, and I think the right arm placement is one of the hardest things to get. A lot of times students want to want to hold the guitar up real high, or sometimes you see folks lean down real low. It's again just about a comfortable posture so that you can sit up. For me, that means that my elbow will sit right on the back of the guitar, almost right behind where the bridge is. That allows my arm, if it's bent at a 90-degree-ish angle, is going to run right up along the neck of the guitar. Why that matters is because when it comes to strumming the guitar, it gives me a very easy pendulum that I can strum up and down the strings, or individual notes. It's just a much smaller motion. So that gets to holding the pick. When we hold the pick, I recommend that another mistake a lot of folks make is they leave a lot of pick exposed, but when you do that, it makes it hard to control. The less amount of pick, the less amount of pick that you have exposed gives you a lot more control. It allows you to control how you go across the strings, and also as you get better, it allows you to add muting to it. And that's me just using my thumb at this point to help dull the note. If we look at our left hand, so our left hand on the guitar, the thumb is going to be in a lot of different angles depending on what type of chord we're playing or the position on the neck. But a couple of simple principles that I'd like to bring up is as we bring our thumb around the back of the neck, what that allows is for our wrist to more easily come farther forward underneath the guitar, which allows our fingers to come more directly down on the instrument. If you clutch really tight, see how your fingers flatten out? That can make it really hard for a beginner to try to figure out how to get their fingers down on the neck of the guitar. But if you bring that thumb around, allow your wrist to come underneath, it's going to open up the hand, allow your fingers to come down more directly on the neck of the guitar. Also notice what's happening with my elbow. When I rotate my arm around, my elbow comes much closer to my rib cage and forward. If you fight that, if you try to keep your arm out and bring this around, it's going to create just a lot of tension in your arm. It's super uncomfortable. So again, this is listening to your body and doing what feels comfortable. So again, bring that underneath, bring your thumb underneath. Allow your arm to also just freely rotate along with it. Oftentimes that elbow is going to come closer into your rib cage, and that gives us a better angle that we can come down with our fingers onto the neck of the guitar. We're going to get into this later on, but muting I also think is an important thing to touch on, especially since I mentioned punk rock. When we start muting, a simple way that I teach it to students is to kind of karate chop right on the bridge. We see our strings connect with the metal right there. Right where that metal connects with the bridge, we kind of want to karate chop, and you'll hear that mutes the strings. Without my hand there, it ring out. With my hand there, it mutes it. Now notice when I'm chugging, I'm no longer rotating from the fulcrum of my elbow to strum the guitar. Now I'm karate chopping and I'm just using my wrist, this motion with the wrist and my thumb and index finger. Let's get into playing the guitar, playing our first chords on the guitar. When we look at the charts, we're going to use, at this stage, we're going to use the color red, a red dot to indicate our first finger, where I want you to place your first finger. We'll use a blue dot to indicate where I want you to place your second finger. We'll use a green dot to indicate where I want you to place your third finger, and we'll use a yellow dot to indicate where I want you to place your fourth finger. That might change as we progress through the lessons, but for right now, that's going to be the color scheme to kind of learn. So the first chord that we're going to look at here is going to be a simple A chord. Now mind you, theoretically you're going to see that there's some things that are not accurate about what I'm teaching here, but they're simplified and they make it easy to get started. A lot of times folks will grab a chord chart that looks something like this, and these are your open chords, or also sometimes referred to as your cowboy chords. But even starting with cowboy chords like this, just beginning, it can be really awkward to figure out how to get your fingers onto the neck of the guitar, and even more complicated to figure out how to change the fingering from one chord to another. So let's start with some very simple chord shapes, and let's use a principle that I like to refer to as anchoring.